Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Daniel Penny's heroism is not going unnoticed, and President Trump returned to the world stage while the Middle East changed dramatically with the fall of the Assad regime. Okay, let's get into it. After only one weekend, the situation in Syria has changed dramatically. The anti-government forces launched a lightning offensive against the capital Damascus and quickly succeeded. Syrian anti-government forces have declared Damascus free, according to a statement on Sunday. Syrians flooded the streets, they toppled the statue of Assad's father, the late president, and they set fire to paintings of Assad to celebrate the fall of his regime. In order to celebrate, people danced with the armed opponents of the government. We said last week that Assad had fled Damascus at the beginning of the civil war, but that was not true. It was only his family that fled. Assad had announced that he would address the nation at 8 p.m. local time on Saturday, but the speech did not happen. Two Syrian security officials told the Wall Street Journal that Assad left Syria in the early hours of Sunday morning, with his destination unknown. Later, Russian state media announced that Assad and his family had arrived in Moscow. A Kremlin source told the TASS media agency Assad and his family members have arrived in Moscow. Russia, for humanitarian reasons, has granted them asylum. Anti-government forces have issued a statement saying that they have taken over the state media of the Assad regime as well as the infamous prisons. A video statement from Syria's state television said that all prisoners had been released after Assad had been overthrown. The Syrian Prime Minister said in an audio recording on Sunday morning that he does not intend to leave and that the government stands ready to work with any leader that the people choose. He also called on Syrians to protect public facilities, saying that they belong to all citizens. The main leader of the armed opposition in Syria also called on the rebels not to undermine state institutions. Before Syria's armed opposition took over the capital, both Russia and Iran signaled to the Syrian leader that they could not or would not intervene to save his regime. Iran had withdrawn its senior commanders who were stationed in eastern Syria. At the time, President Trump also called on the U.S. not to intervene in any potential regime change in Syria and to let the conflict develop on its own. And the White House also agreed. President Trump said Russia and Iran aren't getting involved in Syria's civil war because they're no longer powerful enough. President Trump wrote Russia and Iran are in a weakened state right now, one because of Ukraine and a bad economy, and the other because of Israel and its fighting success. Likewise, Zelensky and Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. There should be an immediate ceasefire and negotiation should begin. This Saturday, President Trump held a three-way meeting in Paris with French President Macron and Ukrainian President Zelensky in order to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war and other key issues. Zelensky described the meeting as good and productive. He added that President Trump is, as always, resolute. I thank him. President Trump went to Paris for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral after 5 years of restoration work following a tragic fire. The evening also marked the symbolic Great Awakening of Notre Dame's famed organ. The organ is an 8,000 pipe instrument that was painstakingly restored to its former glory.
Éveille-toi, orgue, instrument sacré, entonne la louange de Dieu, notre Créateur et notre Père.
The trip also marked President Trump's return to the world stage. Macron literally rolled out the red carpet for him. The two men shook hands and patted each other on the back enthusiastically. But the biggest interest on social media was the way President Trump and Macron shook hands for the second time. One user, George, wrote in a post on X, "Macron is going to need a hand massage after all that twisting and pulling Trump did to him." Commentator Drew Hernandez said, "President Trump manhandles French President Emmanuel Macron with one of the most dominating handshakes I've ever seen." Some comments described the scene as a power contest. Some people on social media pointed out that this was not the first time such a scene had occurred, and that there had been a similar contest between them as early as 7 years ago. During a meeting in 2017 during President Trump's first term in office, the two world leaders had a 29-second handshake, and they appeared to be tugging back and forth as they walked with their wives. It's also interesting to put together a comparison between that video from 7 years ago and this one. President Trump said that the world is going crazy when he attended the Notre Dame reopening. The good news is that much of the madness is gradually being corrected. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the case of Marine Corps veteran Daniel Penny. Last May, Penny was riding the subway in New York when he came across a homeless addict named Jordan Neely who went insane on drugs and threatened the safety of other passengers. There was no police officers present at the time, so Penny went forward to bring Neely under control unexpectedly. In the process, not knowing whether it was a drug-induced heart attack or some other reason, Neely fell unconscious. He ended up dying after being hospitalized. But even though Penny was acting heroically and was forced to strike in order to protect the passengers in the subway, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in New York charged Penny with manslaughter, which carries a maximum sentence of 15 years. The incident has sparked great controversy. This tragedy should not have happened. The deceased, Neely, had been arrested 3 times in 20 months on charges ranging from exposing himself to female strangers to assaulting an innocent passerby. He was supposed to be in jail, but he was always released. And instead of going after the parole system for being too lax, the prosecutor is charging the hero who protected innocent people. Jurors could not agree with the prosecutor's indictment, though, so the judge dismissed the manslaughter charge. And fortunately, the final verdict has brought an end to this controversial case. Penny was found not guilty in the subway death of Jordan Neely. Representative Eli Crane, an Arizona Republican, plans to formally introduce a resolution to award Penny the Congressional Gold Medal for his heroic action. In an interview with Steve Bannon's War Room, Eli Crane said the following.
Yeah, Steve. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're introducing a resolution early next week to give Daniel Penny the Congressional Gold Medal. And what we want to do is we want to honor this young man for what he did and the fact that, we don't know what's going to go on in this courtroom. I think a lot of us, aren't super optimistic about what's going to happen to Daniel Penny, but we want to help change the narrative, and we want to honor Daniel Penny for the hero that he is.
Crane, who is a Navy SEAL veteran, understands better than most how important Penny's courage was to stand up when the incident happened. Crane said, Daniel Penny's actions exemplify what it means to stand against the grain, to do right in a world that rewards moral cowardice. His resolution reads, the courageous actions taken in response to the threat to his community by Daniel Penny, a decorated U.S. Marine Corps veteran, went beyond the civilian call of duty. Speaker Johnson also posted on X, he wrote, Daniel Penny's actions were heroic and protected the lives of people on that train. We used to celebrate bravery like this in America, but the left continues their crusade to protect criminals and prosecute heroes. Good to see this charge dismissed. Speaker Johnson also commented about President Trump's nomination of Pete Hegseth for the Pentagon. He said that he is confident that Pete Hegseth will be confirmed.
All right, let's bring in Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who joins us now on Fox & Friends. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you all.
So you heard the report. It seems like when it comes to the confirmation of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, there is a very positive momentum. Senator John Cornyn came out last night expressing his public support for Pete. And it seems like things are moving forward with Joni Ernst as well. How do you feel as we sit this morning about Pete Hegseth getting confirmed as at DOD?
I'm optimistic about it. I think he's on the right track. I talked to a number of senators personally on the Hill just over the last couple of days, and it seems like the momentum moving the right way. I like how he's approached it. We've all made mistakes in our lives, right? But we believe in redemption. And what Pete brings to the table is a love for the military, a great education background, a great experience set. I think he's well suited for the job, and he will shake up the status quo, which is why this pick is so important. That's what President Trump, that's the common denominator, people who would shake it up.
And I think that's precisely why he's getting the pushback that he has. I mean, let's face it, and by the way, I love what you said about redemption. We've talked about this journey that Pete has been on, and his mother talked about it here. Those of us who sat on the couch have also seen that. It's a sincere thing. He's a family man. He comes here on the weekends. We see him, we know him so well. We know who he is. Nobody who's made those reports has ever come to us and asked us about it. But it's so interesting, isn't it, Speaker Johnson, that the media and so many of the people who are clutching their pearls over Pete's past are the same people who want to put pornography in our school, who are responsible for basically the degeneration of our culture.
It's always a double standard with the other side, and he's a threat to them because he will shake up the status quo. I got here a little bit early this morning. I was in the makeup room, hair and makeup, right? These ladies, professionals, extraordinary staff you have here at Fox News, they're back there, and they were telling me how much they miss Pete. Yeah. We love him so much. He's so professional. He's so great. They showed me their social media posts where they're defending him. These are people who have been in work with him for, 8 years he's been at Fox? Yeah. They're his biggest fans. So talk to the people who actually know Pete, who've worked with him. I talked to him a few days ago. He was in good spirits, and I hope he gets this done. It'll be a good thing. My oldest son is a freshman at the Naval Academy. This is a live fire exercise for me. We got to fix the DOD, and he's the right guy to do it.
The Federal Court of Appeals also made a wise decision last week dismissing TikTok's appeal. TikTok, in its Chinese parent ByteDance, previously filed a lawsuit in federal court to block a bill that was passed in the U.S. in April that would have required ByteDance to divest itself of TikTok within 9 months, or TikTok would have been taken off the shelves in the U.S. TikTok and ByteDance argued that the bill would have infringed on the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment protection of freedom of speech. The 3-judge panel was unanimous in upholding the divestment requirement for TikTok. In the ruling, the judges stated that the U.S. Constitution is to protect freedom of speech in the U.S. and is not to be used by enemies against the U.S. Judge Douglas Ginsburg wrote, "The government has offered persuasive evidence demonstrating that the act is narrowly tailored to protect national security." The judge also said that the First Amendment is not a license for foreign adversaries to propagandize America's youth. Judge Ginsburg also said, notably, TikTok never squarely denies that it has manipulated content on the TikTok platform at the direction of the PRC. Its silence on this point is striking, given that the intelligence community's concern is grounded in the actions that ByteDance and TikTok have already taken overseas. The First Amendment exists to protect freedom of speech in the United States. Here, the government acted solely to protect that freedom from a foreign adversary nation and to limit that adversary's ability to gather data on people in the United States. Concerns about foreign control of mass media are of age-old vintage. An example would be that the Radio Act of 1912 required radio operators engaged in interstate or international communications to obtain a license from the Secretary of Commerce and Labor. But Congress made licenses available only to U.S. citizens or companies. However, the strategy of the CCP has now become even more cunning recently. Since the Chinese Communist Party's own media has no credibility, they use money and benefits to buy the American media. The New York Times recently published a series of articles attacking the New York-based Shenyang Performing Arts. This is a typical example of their underhanded tactics to first slander anyone who stands up against the CCP. We have featured Shenyang performances many times in the past on our program. Currently, Shenyang is also recognized by mainstream society as one of the top performances in the world. Simply put, the Shenyang show is a demonstration of the charm of traditional Chinese culture. Shenyang showcases the grandeur and splendor in China before the Chinese Communist Party took control of China by force. The elegance and nobility of traditional Chinese culture through the different dynasties in the show contrasts the ugliness and vileness of the Chinese Communist Party. This makes Shenyang a key target of the Chinese Communist Party. The New York Times was once one of the most trusted newspapers in the world, but we have witnessed its decline in recent years. It has seriously deviated from its principles of media impartiality and neutrality and has become a vanguard of partisanship. But to generate to the point of helping America's greatest threat, the Chinese Communist Party, to suppress folk art in the U.S. is truly mind-boggling. The U.S. government should investigate what is happening behind the scenes. They should not let the New York Times continue to abuse press freedom. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.